What's up, y'all? It's Mma Analyst here to do my predictions video for UFC 122 Marquardt versus Okami. It's happening in Germany. In Germany, they're going to have to watch this online because the German parliament or whatever, the government, they're like, we're not allowing this stuff to be on TV. It's just too violent for our people. Wednesdays, every single Wednesday, I'm coming out with a new video, a topic. Last week, on whotheman.com, I discussed my feelings on the merger between the UFC and the WEC. This Wednesday, I'll be discussing Fedor Emelianenko versus Overeem, and also a matchup a lot of people want to hear about, the potential matchup, what would happen between Jake Shields and John Fitz. Check it out, subscribe, all that stuff. Look around, whotheman.com. Let's get right down to it. Nate Marquardt versus Yushin Okami. Nate Marquardt coming off a big win over Husamer Paul Harris. Basically, I call that a sneak attack. Before that, he got Chael Sonnened. Before that, a quick, just a quick get out of my face KO punch over Damian Maia. Big win over Wilson Gobert before that. Martin Kampmann, another big win. And then, when it was a little bit of a tough time for Nate Marquardt, the Talus latest fiasco, people are calling him dirty and illegal, doing all types of crazy stuff. He lost the fight, actually, basically because of illegal blows. Jeremy Horn, a win before that. And Anderson Silva basically TKO'd him before that. Nate Marquardt, out of all of his fights, out of his 41 fights, he's got 30 wins. Out of those 30 wins, 15 by submission. But he hasn't actually had a submission since, I think, like 2006. He's kind of switched it up since back in the day with his Pancrase days, King of Pancrase, doing all types of nice stuff. But now he's been working on a stand-up. It's very much improved. And now he'll be taking on Yushin Okami. Yushin Okami's had 2 chances to get that title shot. In the first one, he lost to Rich Franklin in a fight where I was very disappointed in his performance. Son, you should have tried harder. And in his second fight against Chael Sonnen, he just got Chael Sonnened. He has big wins, most recently over Mark Munoz. He has a nice TKO doctor stoppage over Lucio Linares. Win over Dean Lister, Evan Tanner, Jason McDonald. He's had to deal with a lot of little injuries, pulling out of fights, whatnot. I don't know. Is his biggest win a DQ over Anderson Silva? No, he's had bigger wins than that. Anyways, this fight is going to be close in my mind. I think it's going to be a fight where you've got one guy here, you got one guy here. They're going to butt heads and nobody's going to give. It's just going to be face to face. Nobody wants to make a mistake. I don't think anybody's going to go out there with any crazy moves. They're just going to keep it pretty simple. It's actually probably going to keep it ugly simple. If you're going for takedowns, I don't think they're going to be double legs. People can try and push him up against the cage, drop under, pull out his legs, try and get that takedown. Lots of leaning, lots of trying to impose will on the other fighter. And that's why I just say they and the other, because I believe they'll both have the same type of game plan. I think this is a very difficult matchup to predict. And really, it's going to be, for a lot of people, a difficult matchup to watch, especially at the end of a card that is, you know, it might end up being full of fireworks, but it's definitely not full of anything with much meaning in any weight classes other than the main event. In the end, I think it's going to go to decision. I think it's going to be a close decision. And anytime you have a decision and there's an Asian and he's not in Japan, you go with the other guy. So that's how I see it. Whether or not Nate Marquardt actually earns this decision, which he very well may, I'm just saying it's going decision. I think it's going to be a very close fight, and I think it goes to Nate Marquardt. Most likely it'll be because he does a little of the punch in and whatnot before they clinch, and I don't think Yushin Okami is going to come in for the clinch punching. So that's how I see it happening. If Yushin Okami does win this, it'll be from getting takedowns and not getting submitted on the ground and just controlling from the guard and maybe half guard and whatnot. But I don't expect many fireworks. I don't expect anybody to get finished in this fight. Next fight, Alessio Sakara versus Jorge Rivera. Alessio Sakara coming off of an absolute, just a beatdown over James Irvin, who came in really, really looking rough and just not good. Split decision win over Talis Latis, and a knockout, a head kick over Joey Vidipo. His last loss was to Chris Lieben, who, by the way, could be in title contention with like another win. This is kind of crazy. I'm just saying. So, what do we have? We have Alessio Sakara, who's got quick hands, pretty good boxing. He can knock you out. Obviously, that's what he's going to look to do. Out of his 15 wins, 9 of them have come by knockout. Jorge Rivera, out of his 18 wins, 11 have come by knockout. He's got a nice, dirty win over Nate Marquardt. Another nice win over Rob Kimmins. Beat down over Kendall Grove. Had him up against the fence. Just pounded him into the fence, through the fence. His last loss was to Martin Kampmann. He also has a knockout loss. You know, he dishes him out. He takes him in to Terry Martin. Also has a TKO loss to Chris Lieben. Who would have known that little Chris would be doing so well nowadays? Even though that was back in the day. And by back in the day, I mean 5 years ago. Anyways, Jorge Rivera is going to have the power. And I think he's going to have the accuracy, and I think that's where it happens. Sakara is going to try and move and you know, try and get in. And I think Jorge Rivera is just going to have that lights out, put him to sleep type move. And I think that's what's going to happen. Andre Winner versus Dennis Seaver. Andre Winner coming off of his loss to Nick Lentz, where he just got leaned on and sent home. He has a win over Rafael Oliveira and Rolly Delgado, a loss to Ross Pearson. That's his most recent stuff. Fighting out of somewhere in the UK. He'll want to keep this fight on the feet, and that's what Dennis Seaver is going to want to do as well. Out of Dennis Seaver's 16 wins, he's got 5 knockouts, 8 submissions. But at the same time, Andre Winner, he knows how to do his thing on the ground as well. Not at a high level, and not against somebody like Nick Lentz, who just wants to hold you down. But against somebody who's not so much that American, you know, wrestler, just the huggy bear. He can do stuff. But I think this fight is going to be about who wins on the feet, and really who's not too proud to shoot for that late in the round takedown. You know, these guys are fighting. Oh, yeah, I understand. All right, I'm going to shoot for a takedown and try and get some quick points. Who's going to do that? On the feet, I think Dennis Seaver has the better hands. And I also think that on the ground, Dennis Seaver probably can handle his own. He can at least try and implement a little bit of a takedown game, or at least a wall lean game, as I call it. I'm going to have to go with Dennis Seaver winning this fight. But it's clear what's going on here. The UFC sent these guys over to Germany to just throw punches. Amir Sadollah versus Peter Sabata. Peter Sabata is on a 2-fight losing streak. He lost to James Wilkes. He lost to Paul Tiller before that. Out of his 8 wins, he's split it down the middle. 4 wins, 4 knockouts. Fighting out of Germany. We know why he's on this card. He'll be taking on Amir Sadollah, who's coming off of an absolute getting his ass dominated. Whoa. Not what I meant. By Dong Hyun Kim. This is not going to be that type of a fight, though. I think that Amir Sadollah, he's been working on his stand-up. He's been working on his striking, and that's what he's going to come out and try and do. And I think that's what Peter Sabata is going to do as well. If Peter Sabata decides, I'm going to not be afraid to take this to the ground and get some points, I think he can do some good work, or at least in spurts. But I think this fight's going to likely stay on the feet, and I've got Amir Sadollah getting a win, a much-needed win. Goran Relic against Krzysztof Sozinski. Goran Relic was on an 8-fight winning streak, including a big win over Wilson Govea. And then he lost to CB Dalloway. Then he lost to Kendall Grove. That was both at middleweight. Now he's going back to light heavyweight against Krzysztof Soszynski. Krzysztof Soszynski is coming off of his win and loss over Stephan Bonner. Lost to Brandon Vera. And then a nice little string of wins where he had a win over Shane Prim, Brian Stan, Andre Gusmao. I think this fight's going to stay on the feet. Except for when Krzysztof Soszynski decides to implement a little bit of a lean against the cage and some clinch work and whatnot. I think Krzysztof Soszynski will have the edge there. If it goes to the ground, I don't see Krzysztof Soszynski doing a whole lot of damage or submitting or ground and pound, but I see him just being able to stay in the guard of Goran Relic and get points. In the end, I'm picking Krzysztof Soszynski by a decision. On the undercard, I've got Kyle Noak over Rob Kimmins, Vladimir Medashenko over Ferreira. By the way, Ferreira is the one guy so far to beat Maldonado. I've got, to be honest, I'm going to go with Kraus over Scanlon. I want to go with Dwayne Bang Ludwig over Nick Osipzak or Osipzak. I'm just saying it right. I always say Osip. So what was it? Osipzak. I want to pick Dwayne Bang Ludwig, and I even feel like I'm going to say it, but then I know I'm not. I'm going to go with Nick Osipzak. I'm going to pick Seth Petrozelli over Carlos Vermola, and I'm picking Carlos Eduardo Roca over Chris McRae. Wasn't he a late... Anyways, try and enjoy it. It's not that great of a card, but luckily they're following it up quickly with a pretty good card. Rampage against Machida, Hughes against Penn, Phil Davis against Boach, Soteropoulos versus Lozon. So just, make it through this. Carl Parisian's coming back. Tyson Griffin's gonna try and get some, deliver something to Nick Lentz. It's happening in Detroit, so there's gonna be, well, not Detroit, but Palace of Auburn Hills. So anyways, let's just focus on that. But in the meantime, let's get some free MMA this Saturday. MMA, y'all. It's important.